today we will talk about a new design of Daniel, London Necropolis Railway. And Daniel, can you please tell us something about the game? Give us some facts first, maybe?
Sure. So this game is based on an actual historical railway in London in the late 1800s. Following a really bad cholera epidemic, they kind of ran out of room to bury their bodies and needed to come up with a solution to inter the dead kind of off-site. So they created this off-site cemetery and then this one rail line that went between London and the necropolis and just back and forth, and that's all it did, which I thought was a fascinating idea for a game. And then I designed this game around it, and players are kind of coming up with their own kind of plan for the system and developing the London terminal and the Necropolis Railway, and then upgrading the railway between the two. The Necropolis, yeah, yeah.
That's really a fascinating story, which also attracted me initially to the game because it sounds so strange, so
Yeah.
strange. So, but as Daniel said, it's a wonderful story for a game, in my opinion. And hello, Nick, good seeing you, and hello. Andre, also good seeing you. And Nick is saying the cemetery is approximately 50 miles from his home. So, yeah, you see, local history. So the game it obviously isn't released yet. When will it be done, and how will it be marketed?
So New Mill Industries, which is the company I've been running for the last year and a half, is partnering with Spielworks to bring, because we usually do smaller games, and this is a much larger kind of standard size Euro. And so we're partnering and we're launching a Kickstarter on March 15th. And then Spielworks is handling the production and the European fulfillment. And then can we say who's doing the distribution for the fulfillment for the US?
Yes.
So I guess Capstone is going to be handling the
Yes.
fulfillment in the US. So it's a much larger project than anything that I've worked on, which is why Uli is being so great and helping me get this out there.
Yeah, and I'm of course excited to work with you, Daniel, and with your company, New Mill Industries, a company that you and Tony Miller, of course,
Hmm.
are doing together. And Daniel and Tony have a proven track record. They have released several games via crowdfunding, so this will be hopefully another successful entry. There's also Matt. Hello, Matt. And he's saying, I have an exclusive. His Spiel works on games about disease outbreaks. No, not anymore. And Nick, I think this was a pretty good and bad pun at the same time. So I won't repeat it here. So, Daniel, what is the playing time and the number of players for London Necropolis Railway?
So it plays 2 to 4. It scales really well at those player counts, and it runs about 60 minutes. A two-player game will be a little shorter, but yeah, it comes in at under 60 minutes. Uh,
And this is because you are doing it and I am doing this together. This is a
mhm.
dual language edition. So
Yeah,
it's an Anglo-German edition, but maybe, Daniel, you are showing some components of
sure.
the yeah, prototype PPC copy
Yeah.
that you got, because you will see that most of it is language independent.
Just about everything is language independent. We'll have two separate rulebooks, one for English, one for German. These are not the quality. The art is finished, but the quality is going to be a little different. These are likely going to be punch boards rather than these kind of more like game board style. But this is what we wound up doing for our couple preview copies.
So
So this is the
what?
London.
Yeah.
This is the London office. So you can see there's different sections you can upgrade, which will affect your income when your train gets back to London. Income being the mourners and the coffins that are coming into the station that you then have to transport, as well as money, which is used to upgrade things. Then you've got the Necropolis Board, which is where you will send the coffins. They can go anywhere as long as you have a staff member in that row. And if you match the colors, you'll get a coin bonus, but you don't have to place anything there. And then there's a bunch of scoring, which I won't go into right now. And there's a spot for crypts, which give you multipliers for the scoring in the columns. And then you've got the railway board that goes in between those two.
Mm-hmm.
So your train starts at London, moves around to the Necropolis and back in a loop throughout the game several times. And you've got these spots here, which you have tiles that will hold your coffins and your mourners. Those can be upgraded and added on as well to increase your capacity as you move around. And then there are bonuses for completely upgrading all three of those pairs. And the other board I have here is so every player has a set of these in front of them, right? That's their player boards. Then there's a central board, which is two-sided for the 4-player. It's a little shiny, sorry about that. The 4-player and the 2 or 3-player side, which holds the crypts, which get more expensive as they get purchased. It tracks the number of rounds in the game. And then at the bottom here, you've got these bonus actions, which you can spend your action discs on.
Yes.
And then a reminder of what happens at two specific points in the game. Sorry, that's really glossy.
This is a glossy board, yeah, but
Don't know
that's
why.
fine. We will move, by the way, to an online version of this game very soon, so you will see the same thing set up on an online table. So again, the facts are 2 to 4 players and 45 minutes for 2-player game, up to 75. But there are cards too, so maybe
I was going to show you the cards too. I got the deck of cards, which are also, you scale which cards are in the game. There's like a signifier here about which ones you put in for certain player counts. And then every card has 3 sections on it, corresponding to the London, the Necropolis, and the railway. And you're spending the same colored disc in order to activate these actions. And then, depending on which actions you activate, you'll move your train a certain number of spaces. So if I were to do just the top and the bottom action, that would cost me a blue and a gray disc. And then I would look, and I would only move my train one space, right? All the blue actions correspond to the rooms on the London board. The green actions, there's really just 2 options. It's build a crypt, hire a staff, or there's a combination. You can do both. And then on the bottom, you can either spend a gray disc to upgrade any of your tiles on your train board, or you can kind of install this underneath the board. So you would just slide it under.
Yes.
And then that gives you a one-time use ability, which you would then discard later and do that thing. And there's a few of those different ones. Then the backs of the cards, it actually shows you what 2 discs to put down when you reveal the next card. So when I put a new card out, I look at the top of the deck, and that tells me what discs to put underneath, which it's easier to show on the tabletop.
Yeah, but let me already state this right now. Apart from the topic, this action disc mechanic is the second thing that really drew me to this game. So in my opinion, it's really brilliant, Daniel, and wonderful that you brought this to the tabletop gaming world. But we'll get to this in more detail very soon. Let me bring up the URL from BGG of this game. There isn't that much on that page at this moment, but we will add the rules, more stuff over the next days and weeks. So,
Sorry, I was going to say the English rules are done. We're working on the German translation right now, and once those are both done, we'll upload them and make them available. The Kickstarter page has been created as well, and we're just waiting for approval from Kickstarter, and then we'll make that available as well.
Yeah. And by the way, hello Hans, hello JT, good seeing you. Shall we move to Tabletop Simulator? Is this an idea? Let me see. Hopefully people can see this now. I think so. And this is the table set up for 2 players. So Daniel, up to you. Or maybe you again describe the components first, because now they see everything in one place and not just individual sheets or boards.
So let me just come over here. Okay, so we've got the London board here. You've got the different offices. So you got they have multiple parts. So the mortuary has 2 spaces, the chapel has 2 spaces, the office has 1, the lobby has 3, and they correspond with these tiles that you will place to upgrade them. There's an upgrade cost on each space that tells you what the next upgrade will cost you, and then you can see what you collect. So when you get back to London, you look at everything that's on the board, whether there's prints on the board or the tiles on top, and that tells you what you gain in terms of income in mourners, coffins, and coins, and sometimes action discs. There's a space for the mourners to stay if you don't have room to put on the train, as well as the coffins. When we move to the railway board here, you can see that you start with a couple of coffins in your train. These are randomized, as well as 3 mourners. These can be added, as well as upgraded. And same with these. And then once you've upgraded both, you then get this bonus in between.
Yeah, and
you kind of decide which ones you want to do first, the order in that. And then in the final board here, the Necropolis board, you can only place coffins where you have a staff member, and then you can place them. So if once my train makes it all the way to the Necropolis here, he spins it around. That's great. I can then move my coffins, so I would get an extra coin there. Let's say I want to do that, right? You get 10 points at the end of the game for every row you complete. You get points in the columns for every different color, and there are 4 colors, multiplied by either 2 if you have nothing here, or 4, 6, or 8, depending on if you have the different colored crypts at the top. So 2 for a brown, or 4 for a brown, 6 for a yellow, and 8 for a white. You also have these bonus spaces you can spend discs on to get, as part of like a free action. Once per game you can put a blue disc here and take 2 coins. Now nobody else can put a blue disc there to get those 2 coins. So what's interesting is these action discs actually become their own resource as well in the game. You have to moderate those. You start with 3, you'll get 2 a return, but you could spend up to 5 on a turn because you also have this prestige track down at the bottom of the London board, which will increase how much your staff in London, which you can place after a tile is fully upgraded. You can place a staff there, and then those are worth points at the end based on how far up you move this track here. You also get immediate and ongoing bonuses for train movement while you're upgrading that. I've gone over a lot really quickly. I don't know if
yeah, but that was okay. But let's say it's my turn. What do I do in a sample turn? So what would I do?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to choose one of these 3 cards that are out in this row, and you're going to take the 2 discs below it. So let's say you wanted this card here, and you will take those 2 discs and add them to your supply. And then you choose which of these actions you want to do. So you have to spend a disc of the right color for each action you want to complete. So let's say you wanted to do that one that says you can upgrade one of your mortuary tiles. So you can choose either one. Let's say you choose this one. So you have to match. It says 1A, so that goes on number 1. You pay 1 coin. So we'll just throw that over there for now. And you spend the blue disc. And that goes back to the supply. But for now, let's just hold on to it so you remember which ones you've done.
Yeah, Daniel, quick question. So I see on the card there are 3 slots for actions. So you've now decided to do the blue one. Is the turn over, or can I do more?
You can do as many of those actions as you want and can afford to do. So let's say you also want to do the green one. Okay, it means you have to hire a staff. Staff costs 2 coins. It's actually going to be added to the card. That was a late addition after the thing. So it'll be on there as a reminder. Now let's say you don't want to do the gray action. You want to save your gray discs for some reason. So we'll just skip that. So then we've paid this. We take our staff that we paid for. You immediately assign them. So let's say I want to assign them there. You actually haven't done this yet. Let me roll back this a little bit. So then I look and I've paid everything. I now look at my trains. I can go 3 spaces on my train. So 1, 2, 3.
You see, this is on the right of the card.
Yeah.
So and there's 1 step here and 2 steps there. So 3 movements here. And what I now also see, Daniel, and I have another question here is, I see there's blue, there's green, there's gray, and I saw the discs here, also the blue disc. But what about orange? What is orange doing?
Orange can be used for any color disc. That's a wild. It can be used anywhere for any color.
Okay.
So along the prestige track, it's fine. If it says blue, you can use orange to do any of these up here in this area as well. So orange is always wild.
Yeah. Okay.
So once you've moved your train, if you did not install your card, which I can talk about in a minute, then this all just gets discarded. And then we get a new card. So we hit that button. Now the new card comes out, and you look at the top of the deck, and it adds a gray and an orange below that new card. And that happens every time you put a new card out.
And this is what I meant earlier. I think this is really brilliant. So that's you are getting a new card, and the card that is on top of the deck, the flip side of this card, the back side, determines which colored discs are coming in. So this is really a nice thing. You are always getting 2 discs when you are picking up a card, but this card may be not that useful. So of course, in theory now, the one with the Joker wild card seems to be very valuable, but maybe you don't need this action there. So this is really a good thing.
Yeah. So the one thing I didn't do on your turn there was talk about the bottom of the card. So every gray action. So let's go back to this one. So I could always spend a gray disc to activate the gray action and just flip over one of these tiles. Although it's not letting me. Oh, L, and then there we go. So now this can hold 5 instead of 3, or I could use it to add another tile of either type. Alternately, if you pay a gray disc, you can install this under your board. In the physical game, you should be able to slide it under. And then you have a one-time use ability that you can do anytime on this turn or another turn. And there are 4 different abilities. So this one says, when you're buying a crypt on a future turn, you can count the mourners that are on your train as well as any that are already at the cemetery. Normally, you can only use the ones that are already there. So that might let you grab, one of these crypts at a cheaper cost before somebody else gets to it. There's one that lets you, when you pay for your staff, it's cheaper. There's one that when the train gets to the cemetery, you can get money if your mourner cards are filled. And there's one that allows you to move your train farther, depending on how many cards you have already installed in your train. So those are little bonuses, and you're always deciding whether you want to use that, install that bonus or put one of your kind of capacity tiles. That's always an interesting choice.
So taking another quick look at this center railway board. So basically, the wooden locomotive shows where you are, whereas the center tells you what is loaded on the train, and
Correct.
there can always be coffins and mourners. So and that's why it makes sense to upgrade the capacity here of your
because
train.
If you don't, you're only going to be taking 2 coffins per trip, and you're not going to be able to get much here at all, and your scoring is always going to be much lower. So you want to focus on getting those. Plus, as you increase your income, you're going to be bringing in more coffins and mourners, and they're doing you no good just sitting at London. You have to get them in the Necropolis.
So what happens if the train reaches the Necropolis? So that's a green spot.
Yep.
Over
so
here.
Once it reaches there, or past it, you could then unload everything from your train onto the Necropolis board. Now, you can only put things where you have staff.
Yeah.
And if you can match the color, you get coins. So if I only had the one staff, I could only put coffins in this one row, which is not going to do you good, because to get the really high scoring, you want to be able to do different colors of coffins in each column. So it's all about kind of balancing your upgrades at all 3 places throughout the game as you go, to kind of maximize your efficiency, your scoring potential.
Yeah. And what happens when the train is back at London?
Once it moves back to London or passes it, that's when you look at your board here, and you get all the income for whatever is visible. So you just look at all your tiles and anything that's printed on the board that's visible, and you get all that. And then you have to pay 2 coins for every staff person you have, either at the Necropolis or if you have one on an upgraded tile. If you flip that tile over,
Yeah.
those get paid as well. So when you hire a staff using that green action, you can hire them either into London if there's a tile available, or into the Necropolis.
This is over there. So yeah, and the train. It's not in this game that you go to the Necropolis once and then once back to London. This is happening all the time. So the train
Yep.
is basically, or your train is constantly moving. Yeah.
Yeah, and the more you cycle it, right, the more you're going to be scoring points. The more you're setting up yourself for points, the more you're getting income, and then back and forth. So it's a constant kind of rotation through.
Yeah, right. And let me quickly look into the chat here. Hello, Kratz Spitzdorf, wonderful name. And there is Stefan Risthaus. Hello, good seeing you. And Ben is there. Good seeing you. Hello to California and hello to Texas, to Mo. And Blue Dane is there. Good seeing you. Yeah, and Matt is making or is having a valid point. He's saying, do you think that people think it's a train game? And I think Daniel is answering this here. It's a train game, but not a train game. So it's not really that easy to find a suitable cover for this game. But what is really, it's just a marketing thing. So we wanted to be famous and rich and everything with this game, so we decided there has to be a train on the cover. So that's a real reason. Yeah.
I mean, it is a game about a train,
Yeah.
but just one train.
So it makes sense. Anything else you'd like to add to gameplay here, or when does the game end, Daniel?
So the game goes for exactly 12 rounds. Halfway through the game, you're moving the marker down with each round. Before the 7th round, every player gets a free action of their choice. They don't have to pay the coin cost, and they don't move their train. So everybody chooses something to do. So it's really, build or upgrade a tile, add a tile to your train, hire a staff. Those are really your main options. And then move on to the next round. You go through the next 6 rounds. At the end, you get one last movement of your train to whatever the next station is, unless you're already at one, and then carry out that action. And then you do final scoring, which I mentioned is a combination of rows completed, the column scoring, which has some math involved, and then your staff at London multiplied by the number, whatever the value of your prestige track is. And then all your mourners left over at the cemetery are worth 2 coins apiece, and then every 5 coins you have left is worth a point. And then a point for any coffin you can't vary. If you have coffins that make it to Necropolis and you don't have staff, then you have to put them in this kind of Potter's Field spot, and then those are worth a point apiece.
And there is a question in the chat: how is player interaction working? Is there player interaction, Daniel, in this game?
So it's pretty passive interaction in that you're it's the drafting of the cards and the discs. So somebody may grab that card you want before you get to it. There's not a lot of kind of active player interaction. It is more of a kind of a Euro in that respect.
Yeah, absolutely correct. So if you're looking that you are constantly working together or stealing stuff from the other player or being there first, no, this is not your kind of game. As Daniel said, I can steal a card maybe that is somewhat more valuable, but that's
or getting to a crypt at the lower cost, right? So you may be planning to get one of these white crypts for 8, and you have exactly 8 mourners at your Necropolis, and somebody gets it before you, and now it's going to cost 9, so maybe you can't get that one. Maybe you have to go down to a yellow one instead. So there's that element as well, but it's very very light in the player interaction.
Yeah. But not all games need high player interaction. I think it works really well here, and and thank you, JT. So for your nice comment, it looks really good. And and I have to congratulate Daniel as well. As I said, the card mechanic, it's difficult to see this right now without playing it, but it's really wonderful. Which disc do I need? which
Mhm.
disc do I get, and which discs are now coming up. So this is really a wonderful part. And then, of course, the topic, as I said, is also very nice in my opinion. Yeah. And yes, London
It's yeah.
Necropolis Railway, a train game, but not a train game. Yeah.
So somebody asked questions.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to answer.
Yeah,
So he
please.
said, just out of curiosity, how come the Necropolis area is shown in green? Generally, one would expect something dark. So the necropolis is actually kind of a pastoral place where people would go and they visit their deceased loved ones or whatever, but also they would spend some time in nature.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the idea of like this large pastoral cemetery is actually um, historically like a gathering place as well. Um, so we didn't go with it as a dark place. We went as kind of a lighter green um,
Yeah, and
living place for the dead, I guess.
yeah, and we have to you have to see, in my opinion, it's actually uh, death belongs to your life. And if you
Yeah.
look at some of the cemeteries of the at Vienna or in Hamburg, they are huge, but also beautiful, quiet places,
Yeah.
despite that there are people have been buried and thousands have been buried there. But I think that the green is fitting this quite well. And
Yeah, there's actually a very large Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn. It's about a 5-minute walk from me, and it's a
mm,
place people go and have picnics, and they'll
yeah,
it's a very beautiful place.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, let me get out of this screen here, back to Daniel, so to his wonderful face.
my half-nine face.
Thank you very much, Daniel. This was
Yeah.
insightful. And again, the facts. London Necropolis Railway, 2 to 4 players, 45 plus playing minutes playing time,
Hmm.
and it will go to Kickstarter and to Spieleschmiede when on
On March 15th, and it'll run through April 2nd.